Welcome to 28 Days and Beyond, where we celebrate our history, our heritage, our culture, and our own authentic voice. And today, once again, we got a good guest with us. Welcome to the set, Kai.
How you doing? Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Kai, tell me a little about who you are, man.
Yep. So I'm a senior finance major from Baltimore, Maryland. I'm going to be working on Wall Street after college.
Okay.
Got a few things going on campus. Clothing line with some of my friends, valedictorian. Lead over a few clubs. And yeah, just excited to be here.
So you say you're from B-More.
Yep.
That's what it stands for, B-More, right?
Yeah.
So what was it like growing up in Baltimore, your family dynamics and things of that nature?
Yeah, so I grew up in a single-parent household,
Okay.
so it was really tough growing up. But my mom, she kind of was able to play both roles. Kind of struggled to have like a father figure. I mean, I did have an older brother who looked out for me a lot, and an older sister. But early on, it was kind of tough. Juggling, between schoolwork, sports, things like that, but then also being able to have someone to talk to at home for certain problems. But I think that through my experiences, I've been fortunate enough to, develop mentors and different role models who have kind of helped me coach along that process, and wouldn't be where I am today without them.
So how was you able to, and then you kind of illustrated in your comment, how were you able to break through the culture that was happening in Baltimore, and you being a young male and making academics and being able to do time management, because that's what you did,
Right.
as opposed to going with some of your peers? Maybe you had peers that rode with you, but
Right, exactly. I mean, I think unfortunately the dream that's sold to a lot of African American males at a young age is, play football, try to go to the NFL, play basketball, try to go to the NBA. Fortunately, I wasn't too good at either of those sports, and I was really good at academics. And I guess my interest in business was piqued. I got into a program at Wharton, my summer business initiative, and that kind of like piqued my interest in, like the stock market, business and things like that. So once it came to the college application process, I already knew exactly what I wanted to do, and it made my choices and my selections a lot more, transparent.
well, no, what age was you introduced to the Wharton school?
So this was the summer before my senior year in high school.
Wow, I'm gonna have to tell
so
my
I was
son
probably
about
about
this.
16 or 17. Yep.
Okay. And were you good at math? Because when people look at mathematics or those STEM fields, they think the only thing you're gonna do is count. There's other
Right.
ways that you can do it. So was you good at math?
Yeah, I was very good at math, but I think a very important component that a lot of people tend to overlook is just being able to network with people, being sociable, and just being able to communicate your ideas effectively. Like, it's one thing to be able to, crunch numbers all day, but if you
Yep.
can't communicate what you crunch the numbers for, why you
Wow.
crunch the numbers, and what exactly it means, then it's really no point. So I think I'm pretty balanced when it comes to being able to, learn like the technical things, but also being able to express myself and communicate my ideas to others.
Well, you got an analytical mind, I said.
I like to think so.
Well, if you're doing that. So how were you? So what was the change coming to Villanova from a Baltimore and then coming up north, pretty much? Well, next door, pretty much,
Right.
and coming to this college campus. I mean, culturally, how was you able to make that adjustment?
Yeah, it was definitely a dynamic shift, but I think fortunately I was able to go to private school in a similar setting in 7th grade. So my transition from public school in 6th grade to McDonough, the private school that I went to in 7th grade, was probably one of the toughest things I had to do, because I went from an environment with all African Americans coming up from the same like socioeconomic experiences to an institution where there was a lot of wealth, a lot more opportunity. So that transition period was difficult, because not only did I have to make new friends and find myself, but it was also like, do I still keep in contact with my friends from public school? Like, how do I create new relationships and maintain that balance? So that was definitely a challenge, but fortunately, I had a good support system from my mom, my brother, and my sister, and I was able to navigate.
How were you able to break down those stereotypes and those conversations going from public school to that private school and then transitioning here to Villanova?
I think just number one with me, just being fearless, not
Okay.
being afraid to challenge social norms, not being afraid to speak out, always being the one to ask the question, why is this way, or why does it have to be done this way? I think that especially going to an institution like my high school and even at Villanova, a lot of times African Americans are kind of, I guess, pushed to the back, and I guess the level of expectation isn't high. But I was always the person to kind of challenge the norm, and I actually welcome that because being, one of the only African Americans in the business school that doesn't play sports, I kind of get subjected and put into a box. But I actually welcome that because it kind of always forces me to, be on my P's and Q's, if that makes sense. Just always be on top of the game from that perspective.
Now, when you came on this campus and people first perception of you, with some of the questions, hey, do you play sports, or how was that?
It wasn't even do you play sports? It was what sport do you play?
Wow.
Or when's the next basketball game? Or when's like, don't you have practice right now? Like, why are you in class? Like things like that. You would get a lot. It wouldn't even be, what sport do you play? It wouldn't be that. It would be a lot more direct. Like, when's the next game? Situation.
So how did you handle that?
I think when I was a freshman, sometimes I would kind of get upset about it and say like it's unfair to just assume that I play a sport. At other times, depending on how I'm feeling, I would kind of just laugh it off and tell them when the game was. But I think over time, as I've matured, I'll just explain the situation to them, like, hey, I'm actually not on a sport. But I'm actually about to go to a finance symposium, or I'm actually about to go to, the Bloomberg lab and study about financial markets. And just like the expressions on the people's faces once they hear you say that and articulate yourself correctly, is priceless. So.
Wow, I like that. So now you're a young man, and you're a young African American man, or black, however we choose to categorize ourselves these days. What are some of when you see a Trayvon Martin situation, and you see things that's happening, even on college campuses? I think it happened at UVA. Guy got pulled over, cop kind of, beat him up for the most part. Have you ever gotten to those conversations? I mean, what does that do to you? What conversations do you have with your peers here about these current social events, or how we, despite you being well educated, despite you being very articulate, despite persevering and navigating all these different cultural landscapes with success, how can you help young men understand those dynamics and still persevere with the conversation, the culture that's happening right now with young black males?
Right. I think it's a really good question. I mean, I think there's a couple of things. One is just not being afraid, even though we might have some type of fear internally. Like, I'm not going to say that I'm not afraid when I get pulled over on Lancaster Avenue. I'm not going to say I'm not afraid when you see cops harassing people for no reason. But I think that the conversation circulates around, just knowing how to approach situations. So, for example, being pulled over, it's probably not in your best interest to get smart with the cop, even if you aren't doing something wrong, or even if you are. Just being able to handle yourselves in situations like that. And another thing for me that I'm really passionate about is like mentorship, and whether it be about situations like this to my freshman friends, or just being in any type of situation, just having gone through those similar experiences and trying to show them how you can handle certain situations, even if you are, I guess, profiled or I guess discriminated against. Like, there's a certain way to handle certain situations. Like, sometimes that initial instinct of aggression isn't worth the long-term effect that it'll cause. Like, you may feel fine in the moment by expressing yourself in that manner, but it's not particularly worth it. Like, for me, for example, like, I'm not going to get into an argument with someone if someone uses a racist term. I'm not going to engage in a fight with them because I have much more to lose by reacting that way. You see what I'm saying? And I think that that's one thing that I try to portray to the younger generation and people that come after me is like, win the war, not the battle. You understand what I'm saying? So it's more about just being educated and understanding what certain situations should bring out of you and what they want you to bring out, what the other person would like to see come out of you, and then just transitioning into having those conversations with the younger people and showing them that this may be a better way to handle the situation, and just hoping that the cycle continues, because if I didn't have someone to sit down and explain this to me, I wouldn't be doing it. So I feel like it's my obligation to pass it along to other people.
No, and I like that. Do you get pushback at times?
From who?
So when you telling people handle a situation?
I get pushed back a lot, but I think that over the years, as my reputation on this campus has, not to say that it was in a bad place, but as it's improved and people have perceived me in a certain light, I feel like it's more, people are more receptive now, especially being a senior. working on Wall Street, getting good grades, things like that. I think people are more receptive now than as opposed to when I was a freshman, just telling people, hey, that might not be a good idea. But I think the pushback is needed, and it's, from my perspective, it's understood because I was once in their shoes. So, I mean, the pushback is good at times, but you like to see eventually people grow out of that and just kind of understand. I mean, the pushback does show that they care and that, there is something wrong with the situation. But then I feel like on the other hand, the pushback, eventually you need to grow out of it and just understand the certain situations and circumstances that you're presented with.
Man, I could talk to this guy all day, but we have ran out of time. Hey, we thank you once again for tuning in with 28 Days, where we're celebrating our history, our heritage, our culture, and our own authentic voice. And we thank Kyle for coming to the set. Man, you did a great job. I like this.
Appreciate it.
Tune in and come back again. No, I really like it.